cities that are centers for creativity. New York, Los Angeles, or even Austin, Texas might come to mind, but why not Des Moines? When you stop to think, Des Moines has an incredibly vibrant arts scene. From the Civic Center to the Arts Center or the Botanical Gardens, art and culture is alive and well in central Iowa. But if you're a local artisan, where do you go to find an affordable space to develop and produce your creations? That's where Mainframe Studios enters the picture. Mainframe Studios is a nonprofit organization located on Keogh Way in downtown Des Moines. This space is a 36-year-old 5-story building that was originally a telephone company data center. Upon reopening in late 2017, Mainframe included 75 shareable studios on 3 of the 5 floors, now home to nearly 100 creative professionals.
I grew up in a family full of artists. So I was drawing my shoe and playing with clay from a very young age. My mom was an art teacher and a very exciting artist, and my dad was as well. So it was kind of in our blood. But when I went to school, I realized somebody needed to know the business side of art. And so I did graduate with a business and art history degree. And it's really served me well because I've worked in Santa Fe, in Los Angeles, in every form of art representation that you could imagine. I've run galleries, I've overseen some funding through foundations for art programs in Los Angeles. I was a studio manager for a very accomplished metal artist in Santa Fe and ran a nonprofit there. So this was kind of like the culmination of all my background to help advocate for individual artists here in Des Moines with such an exciting project. I think, this year has been really tricky with the pandemic and a lot of economic downturns, and it's been a trick for a lot of people, but it's been interesting that our formula to be financially self-sustaining, business model, nonprofit, here for generations to come, is even working in times of crisis. And we are building out more floors. Our demand is huge. We have a very long wait list for spaces. I think it's because the affordability and the community and the exposure that these artists get to keeps the demand high. So it's really hopeful. I think we can take see a lot of hope in what we're experiencing here for the future. People have a bright outlook for the future. So we have 57 more studios coming open in early 2021, probably in March. We've already pre-leased those spaces to many artists, and we'll continue to do that until they open in March. And then we have one final floor to fund, and we've had generosity in Des Moines to help this project come to fruition. But we will be financially self-sustaining with this next floor, and then we'll even build our own endowment after that, which is great. So it means that artists have a place in the heart of our community for generations to come.
Let's take a quick break before we dive into the art of handmade pottery that combines beauty and function. Our first featured artist is Marion Nehmer. She creates functional fine craft ceramic art that is wheel thrown and altered with glazes to make it safe for food use. Her lasting pottery creations can bring joy to your meal gathering and special occasion.
I first became exposed to clay when I was in college and fell in love with it. And it just has a wonderful earthy scent. There's so many beautiful shapes you can make with it, and I just love that medium. So I continue to be just very enthralled with it, and around 2000 I started again with clay. I had taken a break and was working out of a really great studio at Dahlquist Clay Works. Met a lot of great ceramic artist there. And I think it was 2003, I was one of the first emerging artists in the program with the Des Moines Art Festival. And a couple years after that, the studio where I was working was going to be converted into lofts, like many artists' stories here in Des Moines. I lost that space and was looking for another one, and my friend Emily was also looking for studio space. And we decided, we'd start looking, put our name on the list with Siobhan here, the director at Mainframe, and she gave us a call and said, we have a space open. And we've been here since June of 2018. When I worked at Dahlquist, there were a nice collection of artists with varied backgrounds and varied styles. You give somebody a piece of clay and they're going to do something different with it. What I found here at Mainframe is that even bigger. So it's more people, and we're collaborating in so many different ways. So I might collaborate with a painter down the hall just in the sense of a business. So what are you doing with your website? What are you doing with shipping? All of these nitty-gritty details that we need to know about, and we're sharing it. Also with the other ceramic artists in the building. It's a lot of chemistry involved, and we talk and share what we've learned when we're mixing glazes, because we mix our glazes ourselves. We aren't really buying a lot of them. And just that depth of camaraderie, but that's invaluable to me. And it's a friendly place too. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been teaching myself all about surfaces through different materials. And one of the materials I use is a clay paint. And that's what you're seeing in this color and in this color. This is actually a clay paint underneath a clear glaze. So the process I use is called sgraffito. It's a process of applying, typically it had been paint to a plaster wall, a fresco wall, and scratching back through that surface. So the white is cutting back through with the tool this paint when the clay is still moist. And then a clear glaze is put over it. So all of these white lines had paint on it and that I've taken away. And you can see that inside this cup too. This is clay paint, but the yellow is glaze. So I'm experimenting with, what do I want the surface to look like now that I've had to make a big change. Clay is one of those arduous materials that if you want to make a change and it's been fired, it's kind of hard to make a change. You can, but you can't make a dramatic change. It's fired, it's done. So typically when I'm working, I throw at the wheel, and I use the wheel as a tool to form pretty much a symmetrical shape. So today I'm throwing some flower plant pots that will have an attached saucer. So I've got some brown clay, this is stoneware. I've got some requests for some planters. So right now I'm just going down, and this is the saucer. This part right here is the saucer. So now I'm just going to pull it up a little bit, and I've got my saucer. So I'm going to slow the wheel down a little bit and do a little finishing work on the bottom of the saucer. I like to stand up to throw for a couple of reasons, and mostly it's ergonomics. So repetitive motion injuries, we hear about those of, if you stand a certain way all day. And potters tend to have problems. So standing up, so I can lean against the wall and brace for really big things. So now I'm going to make the bowl part of the planter. It's going to go up I'm going to leave it a little thicker walled. It's a little sturdier. And I think I'll put a copper colored glaze on it. And often when I'm working, I've already figured out how I want to finish it. So then if there are details that I want to add into the clay surface, I can do that now. I can add marks. This one's going to be a little bit bigger. Slowing the wheel down. I have my basic thickness. I can feel down how thick it is. Now I'm going to do a little shaping with my curved tool. And make it go out a little more. It takes very steady hands, and that's one of the hard things to learn when you're learning how to throw and use the wheel as a tool. To just stay very, very steady. You have to learn how to brace yourself. It's also very messy. So once, we kind of I decide, I'm going to spend the day throwing, and then I just stay messy all day, but I don't mind the mess. Just refining the shape. Refining the saucer. And there we go. So this will dry completely, and then I'll put it in the kiln for a first firing, and that's called a bisque firing. Then I'll be able to handle it and it won't be fragile. And then I'll do a glaze firing where I've glazed the piece, and I'll add some drainage holes. There. So I do two firings, not everybody does. I let the piece dry thoroughly. And you can tell when it's dry thoroughly because it's a little warmer. When it still has moisture in it, it's cold. So as you touch pieces, you can kind of tell after time, yeah, that's got to be dry. And I do two firings. So the first one, we put it in. It's very fragile right now. This piece has not been fired at all. It's very fragile. And when I fire it, we want to go slow. We've got chemical water in there. We may have excess moisture that we're not aware of. So we go very slow. This is an 11-hour firing in the kiln. And I fire to about 1900 degrees. So the glaze is going to go to about 2200 degrees. And glaze really is fast once you're fired. Formulate it to the temperature you want to melt at. It's a glass. So it's completely food safe, very durable, and that's my focus. So I'm really working towards functional wear. I love a pretty piece that when you open your cabinet and you pull out a mug, have your tea, you're just so happy, or if somebody else in the family's grabbed it, you might not be as happy. But I love making functional wear. And that pretty piece that you just enjoy. So I also just really love to garden, and be in the garden, whether it's the vegetable garden or the flower garden or just outside in nature. And the leaf shape is a repetitive theme in my work, So this amber-colored, golden-colored piece is probably 5 years old, and the leaf work on it was just, when I was making this, I just kept loving it, I guess. and the way the glaze pools and the leaf, but you know, nature is so amazing. So I'm just very inspired. So my goal is to just keep exploring clay and to be open to what I feel and respond to that. So I think it's really important just to make what you love, and that's the inspiration right there. You look for inspiration in things. If you look and think too much, just make what you love and it'll come out of that. I was also advised going into my first really big show, don't make anything new. You know, when we start making something new, it's months long. And that's been really helpful when I'm preparing for a show and I've got a deadline. Clay takes so long. Don't make anything new. Just get it done and love it. Love what you're doing.
To see more of Marion's work and shop for available pieces, consider visiting her on the First Fridays event at Mainframe, or check out her website at marionnemarpottery.bigcartel.com. We'll take a short break before we get a glimpse into the art of glass blowing. Glass blowing is a technique that involves inflating molten glass into a bubble with the aid of a blowpipe. A person who blows glass is called a glass blower, glassmith, or gaffer. Established in the summer of 2017, J.J. Gaffers is Des Moines' hottest addition to Des Moines' thriving art community. Jesse Bowengrief relocated his studio from Spencer, Iowa, and he creates a wide variety of blown glass, torch work, and even offers glass blowing classes.
I started as a glass blower due to a car accident. My family owned a glass business, and for me to stay in the glass business, I needed to have a job with physical movement, and glass blowing is the only version of glass that has physical movement, so I gave it a try, fell in love with it, and now I became a professional glass blower. I built my own equipment. I started up professionally with zero experience, really, and I've went through a hard learning curve, but it's an exciting art form that is a little bit dangerous, very creative, very rewarding. There's a lot of rewarding moments in it. So when I first started looking at Des Moines, I was introduced to the people here at Mainframe through someone from the Des Moines Social Club. They had me walk down here and meet some people and walk through the building, and I instantly thought this would be a great opportunity for me. Being in Northwest Iowa, small towns, it's about community and working together to make your life better. And one of the things about this Mainframe studio is it's like our own little community of artists here that we can work together and do things that strengthen each other. A lot of times when you have a lot of different creative people near each other, they give each other ideas that you may not look at your business in a certain light. They will help you look at it in a different way. On top of that, we have a lot of different artists and styles and mediums, so we can sit there and mix and collaborate together. There's a lot of things that are going on here at the studio. We have projects that are large, all the way from chandeliers to home interior projects. We do things with the community where we do like 500 glass eggs. We're just getting ready to start on those, and they'll be hidden out in Waterworks Park. And then one of the main things that we'll be doing this time of year is giving glass blowing classes, which is a really neat element because it can introduce people to a process that they can't do just anywhere. Glass blowing, because of the introduction of the intense heats and everything, it has to be in safe environments. So a lot of people will want to do that for their life, but they can just never have an opportunity to. And that's one thing we bring to people here at Mainframe. I will let you try what you want in here for the most part. A lot of studios and a lot of experiences with people with glass blowing, they try to make a little Christmas ornament or a small paperweight, and then they have to build up to a point where they can be comfortable, or the teacher is comfortable giving them a very large experience. Mine also is one that you're not limited on your physical capabilities. You don't need to be an artist, you don't need to be physically capable of carrying anything around. I've given classes all the way to 3-year-olds, all the way up to 97. I've given classes to blind people, physically handicapped people. If you want to come and experience some glass, I'm willing to teach you. So basically, glass blowing, you start off with a metal pipe. You go into a hot furnace that runs at 2,100 degrees, constantly running. And the glass is about the consistency of honey. So when you dip into there and you get a layer out, it's a hot gather of glass. Then we go over to a table and we roll it and marver it out. You can kind of see how I push that glass forward. And that's going to be my usable glass. So I just let this cool. One of the other things I do right now is I put a little bubble in here, and I do that by blowing and trapping air in. So I blow on the end, trap in air, and then here in 3, 2, 1, there's a little bubble in there already. Get a little stretch. So glass is about building it up in layers. Because you can only grab so much glass with it being liquid, you have to go in multiple times. Every time you go in, you coat it the outside, and that gives you a lot more glass to work with. So now I've gotten my last layer of color before adding, or layer of clear before adding my color. So I come over, the color is little pieces of glass, so when I roll it into it, the glass color sticks right to the outside. After I apply my color on, I have to go through a process of melting my color in until it becomes one with the clear glass. So with everything you do, you have to always get more heat. So now that this glass color is getting melted in with the clear, it becomes one with the clear. That gives me time to do some more shaping or coloring. Because my color is on the surface, I grab a metal tool, I can grab, pinch, and twist, and it affects the pattern. I'm putting swirls and different effects inside the glass, and that creates a lot of different action that you can't get unless you actually physically work the color. 5 more seconds, I'll head over to the table again and do the same swirling and twisting. At this point, the glass is basically the consistency of Laffy Taffy. So what you have to do is just grab it and swirl it around. Creates all the effects in there that you want. All right. So now I'm going to use this pair of scissors, grab, squish, and twist, and cut that glass off. So now my pattern comes all the way down to a single point instead of having clear on the bottom. When you go to blow it out, you want to have it nice and smooth. So I work this glass until it smooths out. All right, now we have a nice smooth surface. So this will allow it to blow out and not have a lot of different texture and weird effects in the glass. So the first thing I do, again, just like with before, I'm going to give it some air. I do that. And at first it doesn't really blow up too much, just a nice slow bubble getting bigger. When I first started, I didn't know this trick. Right now it's just going to get visibly bigger. The piece is starting to round out a little bit. So that's how long that air pressure can just keep increasing in size, and with that heat it starts to get a little expansive. But yeah, glass blowing is all about controlling its weakest spots. So by doing what I'm going to do here, the paper will cool it and control the weakest spot and allow me to give air, so that way it's going into some of the strongest spots. Cooling it with, this is just newspaper. So you can see how much it increased there. So I use this tool, and it carves in a line. Come on, there we go. All right, so all right, so now it's flattened on the bottom. So I have a piece that is shaped on the bottom. I have a weakness in it. So the next thing I want to do is take this piece off of this pipe and put it onto another pipe so I can open it up. So I attach this on. Once it's attached on, I take some water, I drip it, and then I break it. So I use these and I come in right here and I just start to physically open this piece up. So once I get it to a certain point, I'm going to start to flare it, and then I'm going to use centrifugal force of spinning to flare it the rest of the way. Ooh, I wonder if there's going to be a... That's how you get a ruffle bowl. So then the piece has to cool through a process overnight, so we're going to take this piece off of here and put it into a box to cool. We do that by using a little bit of vibration. A lot of times I just use a baseball bat.
To learn more about JJ Gaffers' work, see pieces for sale, and to inquire about glass blowing classes or tours, visit jjgaffers.com. Thanks for watching this episode of Movement at Mainframe on MC22. In the following weeks, we'll be featuring more Des Moines artists and their unique talent. For more information on the artists, visit mainframestudios.org.